Hey everybody, thanks for coming back again. This is day 13, and we're going to read Genesis 37, 38, 39 today. Like I said, this is day 13 of our Bible in a Year plan. We're almost 2 weeks in, and we're plugging along through Genesis. We're getting close to being done with Genesis, actually. But it's been good. As we read through today, I'll be reading from the Christian Standard Bible again. I've got a link to one in the description if you want a physical copy of it. I also have a video kind of reviewing that. It's the Bible that I use just with my daily, everyday reading. And so I got it recently, reviewed it, put that up there if you're interested. It kind of overviews some of the top points, in my opinion, about that Bible. So if you're interested, those will be in the description of the video. We're going to do this reading, and then I have actually a couple questions I came up with to maybe keep in mind as we're reading or after we're done reading, to think about as you meditate on the word. That's something that we should be doing, not just reading and moving on, but reading and then really kind of marinating on it, if you will. But we will jump straight into it without wasting any more time. We are on Genesis 37. And here we go. Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. These are the family records of Jacob. At 17 years of age, Joseph tended sheep with his brothers. The young man was working with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought a bad report about them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than his other sons, because Joseph was a son born to him in his old age, and he made a long-sleeved robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his other brothers, they hated him and could not bring themselves to speak peaceably to him. Then Joseph had a dream. When he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. There we were, binding sheaves of grain in the field. Suddenly my sheaf stood up, and your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf. Are you really going to reign over us?" his brothers asked. "Are you really going to rule us?" So they hated him even more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream and told it to his brothers. "Look," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun, moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me." He told his father and brothers, and his father rebuked him. "What kind of dream is this that you have had?" he said. "Am I and your mother and your brothers really going to come and bow down to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. His brothers had gone to pasture their father's flocks at Shechem. Israel said to Joseph, "Your brothers, you know, are pasturing the flocks at Shechem. Get ready, I'm sending you to them." "I'm ready," Joseph replied. Then Israel said to him, "Go and see how your brothers in the flocks are doing, and bring word back to me." So he sent him from the Hebron valley, and he went to Shechem. A man found him there, wandering in the field, and asked him, "What are you looking for?" "I'm looking for my brothers," Joseph said. "Can you tell me where they are pasturing their flocks?" "They've moved on from here," the man said. "I heard them say, 'Let's go to Dothan.'" So Joseph set out after his brothers and found them at Dothan. They saw him in the distance, and before he had reached them, they plotted to kill him. They said to one another, "Oh, look, here comes that dream expert. So now, come on, let's kill him and throw him into one of the pits. We can say that a vicious animal ate him. Then we'll see what becomes of his dreams." When Reuben heard this, he tried to save him from them. He said, "Let's not take his life." Reuben also said to them, "Don't shed blood. Throw him into this pit in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him," intending to rescue him from them and return him to his father. When Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped off his robe, the long-sleeved robe that he had on. Then they took him and threw him into the pit. The pit was empty, without water. They sat down to eat a meal. And when they looked up, there was a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were carrying aromatic gum, balsam, and resin, going down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, "What do we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come on, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay a hand on him, for he is our brother, our own flesh." And his brothers agreed. When Midianite traders passed by, his brothers pulled Joseph out of the pit and sold him for 20 pieces of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took Joseph to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the pit and saw that Joseph was not there, he tore his clothes. He went back to his brothers and said, "The boy is gone. What am I going to do?" So they took Joseph's robe, slaughtered a male goat, and dipped the robe in its blood. They sent the long-sleeved robe to their father and said, "We found this. Examine it. Is it your son's robe or not?" His father recognized it. "It's my son's robe," he said. "A vicious animal has devoured him. Joseph has been torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his clothes, put sackcloth around his waist, and mourned for his son for many days. All his sons and daughters tried to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. "No," he said, "I will go down to Sheol to my son mourning." And his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and the captain of the guards. Genesis 38. At that time, Judah left his brothers and settled near an Adulamite named Hira. There Judah saw the daughter of a Canaanite named Shua. He took her as a wife and slept with her. She conceived and gave birth to a son, and he named him She conceived again, gave birth to a son, and named him Onan. She gave birth to another son and named him Shelah. It was at Chezib that she gave birth to him. Judah got a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. Now Judah's firstborn, was evil in the Lord's sight, and the Lord put him to death. Then Judah said to Onan, "Sleep with your brother's wife, perform your duty as her brother-in-law, and produce offspring for your brother." But Onan, I forgot to say this at the onset. This is if you are listening with kids. You may want to tune out for a minute and listen and then come back and decide if this is, if you want them to hear this. So, you've been warned. But Onan knew that the offspring would not be his, so whenever he slept with his brother's wife, he released stuff onto the ground, also trying to get past the YouTube censors, so that he would not produce offspring for his brother. What he did was evil in the Lord's sight, so he put him to death also. Then Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, "Remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up," for he thought he might die too, like his brothers. So Tamar went to live in her father's house. After a long time, Judah's wife, the daughter of Shua, died. When Judah had finished mourning, he and his friends Hira, the Adulamite, went up to Timnah to his sheep shearers. Tamar was told, "Your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep." So she took off her widow's clothes, veiled her face, covered herself, and sat at the entrance to Enaim, which is on the way to Timnah. For she saw that though Shelah had grown up, she had not been given to him as a wife. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face. He went over to her and said, "Come, let me sleep with you," for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. She said, "What will you give me for sleeping with me?" "I will send you a young goat from my flock," he replied. But she said, "Only if you leave something with me until you send it." "What should I give you?" he asked. She answered, "Your signet ring, your cord, and the staff in your hand." So he gave them to her and slept with her, and she became pregnant by him. She got up and left, then removed her veil and put her widow's clothes back on. When Judah sent the young goat by his friend, the Adulamite, in order to get back the items he had left with the woman, he could not find her. He asked the men of the place, "Where is the cult prostitute who was beside the road in Enaim?" "There has been no cult prostitute here," they answered. So Adulamite returned to Judah, saying, I couldn't find her, and besides, the men of the place said, there has been no cult prostitute here. Judah replied, let her keep the items for herself, otherwise we will become a laughingstock. After all, I did send this young goat, but you couldn't find her. About 3 months later, Judah was told, your daughter-in-law Tamar has been acting like a prostitute, and now she is pregnant. Bring her out, Judah said, and let her be burned to death. As she was being brought out, she sent her father-in-law the message, I am pregnant by the man to whom these items belong. And she added, examine them. Whose signet ring, cord, and staff are these? Judah recognized them and said, she is more in the right than I, since I did not give her my son Shelah, and he did not know her intimately again. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twins in her womb. And as she was giving birth, one of them put out his hand, and the midwife took it and tied a scarlet thread around it, announcing, this one came out first. But then he pulled his hand back. Out came his brother, and she said, what a breakout you have made for yourself. So he was named Perez. Then his brother, who had the scarlet thread tied around his hand, came out, and was named Zerah. Chapter 39. Now Joseph had been taken to Egypt. An Egyptian named Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, and the captain of the guard, brought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man, serving the household of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord had made everything he did successful, Joseph found favor with his master and became his personal attendant. Potiphar also put him in charge of his household and placed all he owned under his authority. From the time that he put him in charge of his household and of all that he had owned, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house because of Joseph. The Lord's blessing was on all that he owned, in his house and in his fields. He left all that he owned under Joseph's authority. He did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. Now Joseph was well built and handsome. After some time, his master's wife looked longingly at Joseph and said, great pickup line, by the way, sleep with me. But he refused. Look, he said to his master's wife, with me here my master does not concern himself with anything in his house, and he has put all that he owns under my authority. No one in his house is greater than I am. He has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. So how could I do this immense evil, and how could I sin against God? Although she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her. Now one day he went into the house to do his work, and none of the household servants were there. She grabbed him by the garment and said, sleep with me. But leaving his garment in her hand, he escaped and ran outside. When she saw that he had left his garment with her and had run outside, she called her household servants. Look, she said to them, my husband brought a Hebrew man to make fools of us. He came to me so he could sleep with me, and I screamed as loud as I could. When he heard me screaming for help, he left his garment beside me and ran outside. She put Joseph's garment beside her until his master came home. Then she told him the same story. The Hebrew slave you brought to us came to make a fool of me, but when I screamed for help, he left his garment beside me and ran outside. When his master heard the story, his wife told him, these are the things your slave did to me. He was furious. He had him thrown into prison, where the king's prisoners were confined. So Joseph was there in prison. But the Lord was with Joseph, and extended kindness to him. He granted him favor with the prison warden. The warden put all the prisoners who were in the prison under Joseph's authority, and he was responsible for everything that was done there. The warden did not bother with anything under Joseph's authority, because the Lord was with him, and the Lord made everything that he did successful. That is it for today. I appreciate you watching, listening. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And specifically with comments, so I am going to try to, going forward, have a couple questions for each day as we do this, just to, like I said before, give you something to kind of meditate on, focus on, to think about the reading that we did. And if you want to comment answers below, you can do that as well. Like I said, I want this to be something for people to go through, to have someone to go through with, spark conversation and discussion, and just be a benefit to people. So, the first question: what do you think about Joseph's dreams, or what do you think Joseph's dreams reveal about his character and God's purpose for him? A little bit with this, I always imagine, and I don't remember, I think I heard a pastor say this at one point in time, but I imagine having these dreams, like Joseph was aware of what his dreams meant. It wasn't a genuinely like shocked. It was, I believe, more of a, hey, I had this weird dream that there was like the 11 stars, and I'm telling this dream to my 11 brothers, and all the 11 stars bowed down to me. Like, what do you guys think that could mean? So I think he was aware of what his dreams were meaning, and I see him being a younger guy that's kind of rubbing this in his brother's face, being cocky, arrogant. Don't know for sure. It doesn't explicitly say that. That's kind of me reading that into it, but I think that helps to see kind of a development of character as we see what Joseph goes through going forward, from that point to where we finally see him at. Question 2. How do you interpret the actions of Joseph's brothers? What lessons can we learn from their jealousy and betrayal? I always think it's interesting when I read through the story of Joseph that they they say, well, let's not kill him. He's our brother. Let's just sell him as a slave. Like, I mean, obviously, I guess selling him as a slave is better, but I feel like it's still pretty low bar to set as your goal on how you treat your siblings. Third question, final question. In what ways do you see God's hand at work in Joseph's life, even during his trials in Egypt? And this is something I always amazes me reading through this, and we'll get to some more of this as we continue on in Joseph's story the next reading tomorrow. But the fact that Joseph, you can make an argument that he was, even if what I thought was right and how he was acting towards his brothers, it didn't warrant him being sold into slavery. He didn't do anything wrong with Potiphar's house. And still, these bad things keep happening. But God is using those things to, what we'll see, put Joseph in the position that Joseph needs to be in, and what would ultimately be a benefit and helpful to everybody. But I won't give away any spoilers. That's coming up over the next couple of days. You're gonna make sure you come back, watch all of them, all the way through to the end. I hope that this is blessing you. It has been a blessing for me. I have enjoyed kind of looking forward to going through and hitting absolutely everything. We can kind of move fast through if we're going through like this, but I do think that there's a benefit to going through like this too. So I hope it's blessing you guys. Feel free to comment if you have any questions, concerns, if you want to answer one of the questions I brought up. Anything like that, feel free to comment below. Like, subscribe, pass this on to other people. Word of mouth is still the best way that podcasts actually spread. So if this has been a blessing to you, or you know someone that you think may benefit from it or find it interesting or just enjoy having someone to read through the Bible with, pass it along, and hopefully it blesses them as well. Appreciate everyone that has watched through this far, and God bless.